Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Cynthia Talbert, and I have been hired by your corporation, the Dynastic Enterprises Incorporated, to work with you in resolving conflict issues. How many of you have ever gotten up in the morning and got into an argument with your spouse or significant other? Please raise your hand. How many of you have gone to work and you've been driving and someone just ticked you off and you got very angry? Now, I don't want you to raise your hand. I want you to think about this. The person got you so angry that you then swerved your car into that person's lane, and then when the person stopped, you got out and you told the person off. Okay. What about then you went on to work and you got into a feud with a coworker? Have you ever gotten into a feud with a coworker? Please raise your hand. How many of you then went home after work and argued at your children? Okay, and don't raise your hand at this. I want you to think about it. You were so angry from all the conflict all day at work that you actually came close to physically abusing your own child or someone's child, or you were emotionally abusive to a child. If you raise your hand to any of those questions, you are in the right place. Welcome to the conflict zone. All throughout your life, you're going to be in situations that can either lead to conflict or not. How you deal with those situations or resolve those situations will determine if conflict arises.
I'm Dave Schlenker, and I am the Marketing and Editing Director, and I am from Ocala, Florida, and I am actually a father of 2 girls and 2 corgi puppies.
My name is Mr. Talbot. I'm from Ocala, Florida, and I enjoy spending my free time playing cards.
Now, with that in mind, today we actually have a case study. We're going to focus on Michael Vick.
I think his story's not finished being written yet.
Right. Interesting concept.
Mm-hmm. He got into trouble, but he is trying to resurrect himself from the ashes.
Do we consider this when we are dealing with our spouses, our co-workers, and other people at church and other places that we interact? Do we consider that they were not born in the same home that we were born in, that they're not from the same place that we're from, and that they have different traditions and values than we do? Do we consider this?
I think initially we don't. We tend to kind of think about how we were raised and our background and kind of go off what we feel is right versus we don't know what the next person's been through, so we can't really focus on that. But as a person, we tend to look at our own life and apply to others, but we can't do that because it's not always the same.
Well, especially if you're in the heat of the moment too. Yeah, you're in this conflict type situation, if you're in the heat of the moment, you're just thinking, how do I feel? It isn't even about where I'm from, what I'm doing, where they're from. I just know I'm not happy with you.
Right.
And on church Sunday, I may sit back and reflect and go, maybe I shouldn't have gone there. So it depends on where you're at emotionally, I think.
And that's a really good point, because I think a lot of times in our relationships we hold this yardstick that reflects our background, and do you measure up to this yardstick?
Well, plus now is he making more money, so more things are available, what he didn't have before too. Would that possibly?
But back on your original question, do you have to expose people to get them to change?
Mm-hmm.
In a perfect world, what I want to think happened, and I don't know, it could be any of these things, is that when you see someone that you care about, whether it's a colleague, a friend, a parent, whatever, and they're going down the wrong road, I think your first obligation is to talk to that person. Mm-hmm. And there's levels, like you were saying, there is a hierarchy of things that you do, and you pick your battles. As a parent, and if this was my son, and I had tried to talk to him, I had tried to talk to his friends to talk to him, and I had gone down every path I could go, be it counseling, church counseling, regular counseling, whatever it might be. If it got to the point where I saw my son being self-destructive, and if I had to choose, am I going to let him self-destruct or am I going to ruin his career? I'd ruin his career.
But public humiliation
would
be the last resort. But
I appreciate some of the things that he did. So obviously the long list that that he racked up over the years. It does show a pattern of personality traits, but that's what I meant by rising from the ashes.
So, and I appreciate the point, but I think the reason for that is because there was so much money to be had in Michael Vick's recovery. He still had the talent. He's still Michael Vick. But there are still people who put him in the right hands to make that comeback. I don't think Michael Vick left jail and said,
you may be right.
If
I
he
don't
lost
know.
"This is
everything,
wonderful.
would he be
My
where
heart
he
is
is now?"
pure. I'm going to."
We
you
did
know,
lose everything.
Yeah.
No, bankruptcy for those people is not like bankruptcy for you and me.
Right.
Trust me on this.
Okay.
It is nothing near
But
what
be that as
bankruptcy
it may, I
seems
don't
like.
think Michael Vick emerged from jail. I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he came out. You know, he saw Christ. He said, "Okay, this is what I aspire to." The pairing of him and Tony Dungy was brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely. But I have a feeling, being the marketing director, marketing is all about image. I mean, if Michael Vick were my client, the first thing I would do when he walked out of jail was have Tony Dungy come in, give him a big hug, and say, "Let's get back to work." Tying those 2 points together, that's a really good point. Is I think the optimistic point of view of yes, let's give the guy a chance. Let's let him let's put it on him. I think that the telltale signs of is the rising from the ashes metaphor applicable is what does he do with this on a personal level, as opposed to just giving him the benefit of the doubt. You mentioned giving his salary. Okay, that's cool, but on a personal level, away from the machine, I want to see him going out to those neighborhoods. I want to see him going out. I want to see him letting folks know, all right, this is what was wrong. This is how I escaped all this. This is, I want inspirational messages from him and only him, and not the marketing people.
Right.
I guess Tiger Woods is a different story. Kids, don't be unfaithful. I mean, when you've
To
got an
get it
He
away
wasn't hired to
from
be
you.
a role model. He was hired to be a football player.
But no, if there's a true conviction and a true change
Right.
in him, he will, that's
Right.
what we're saying is there's the possibility, and maybe he's just not gotten to that
He has
stage
been
yet,
handled
but
this
go
opportunity.
back to your community,
He has been
make a
handed a
difference.
platform. Now the question is, has he risen from the ashes? If he rises from the ashes, if he is solely out of those ashes, if they're off his shoes, to me, he's been granted a platform in which to prove himself.
But is he obligated to use it to prove that he's changed?
It's a personal thing. He's not obligated to do anything, but yet we still are going to question whether his authenticity.
And I guess the bottom line is that he has to realize that the whole world is going to question it,
Right.
and not have that conflict himself. You're going to
Right.
question me, you're going to look at me, you're going to think things, whatever. You got to be good enough with yourself to know that you're okay, and not have to feel like you have to do things to prove to other people. When you start working for other people, that's when you get in trouble.
And wouldn't it be enough that if he never fought dogs again, never toked on a doobie again, never stole a watch again, or never threw a water bottle at somebody else again? Wouldn't that be enough?
Yeah, I mean, we work in our jobs every day and aren't necessarily out there in the community. I'm not saying that's a requirement. I'm just saying that is one way he could,
Right.
No, and
Do I have to prove? I know what you're saying.
I wasn't even saying he has to prove anything to anybody because it's all about himself. I'm just saying we need to be, if we're watching him and saying, oh, well, he just caught a break because he's a good football player, there's money behind him, and he's got good marketing, and we've just rewarded him for bad behavior. There is the possibility that there has been true change within him. And if we don't at least allow for that possibility and say, okay, maybe he really is different, then if we don't allow that for someone such as him, then we're in trouble.
But I
And
think,
I think we need to consider as well. I'll make sure I clear this up. Now, the watch incident, I may have read it wrong. I think it was like 2 people with
It was
him.
his friends.
So it was
It's his
associates. Also, we've named several athletes. I think they've primarily been African American. So Tiger is actually what is it, Caucasian?
I don't know what
Something
that
like
means.
that. So let me change that.
Right.
But I think.
And I think a good point that Lori made, you, as people looking on, you do have to allow for the change. She made that point, and it's great. You have to allow people to change. You just can't say, well, because they did X, Y, and Z, they will always be this way. As a person in the family and in the life, you have to allow people the opportunity to change.
Does that make some sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, and we will get more deeply into that. Maybe some things were not said that you wanted to be said, but we will go there because actually the course goes very deep, but it does require emotional nakedness, and you kind of have to ease
I was gonna say
into
it's
that.
very easy for us to have this great conversation because it's not about us.
And that's
We all have a
not
lot of opinions and judgments, except you. I'm gonna get you. You can be talking. But you know, when it's somebody else, we have a lot of opinions and shouldas and couldas and da 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 da. And when it's us, we deflect.